Hi everyone. Hope you're having a wonderful day. We can't believe it. The last episode, Pick Up the Mic, season 3. It only feels like it was yesterday when we started, but we've had a wonderful season with wonderful guests, and today we even got another wonderful guest. As always, we like to bring these amazing individuals on, and we've got an amazing one today, and his name is Ankur. But like I say, I don't want to bore you with the details. You want to hear from the speaker themselves. So I'm officially going to hand over to our guest speaker today and just ask, could they please tell us a bit more about themselves?
Thank you, Jeffrey, for the kind introduction. My name is Ankur Shah. I'm a geospatial data scientist by profession and environmental educator on the side. I have a YouTube channel focused on and dedicated to environmental issues and solutions. And I'm really happy to be here to talk about these efforts that I'm involved in and how to transform climate anxiety to climate action.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I'm sure our listeners are already listening, and they're just like, wow, what a title. Yes, as Ankur said, today's episode is about turning climate anxiety into climate action. And Michelle's with me today, and she'll be asking a question later on. But everyone knows that, and if you haven't listened to it, the links are down below and should hopefully appear on YouTube as well. Michelle's episode was all about, understanding what in climate anxiety or environmental anxiety is. But Ankur's episode today is about, we've learned what it is in the past. We're now going to talk about how can we turn this into action? How can we get rid of this anxiety and turn it into making something that we can, use to help the planet? Going on from that wonderful introduction, we're now going to go on to our first official question of the episode. Thank you again, Ankur, for that wonderful introduction. You briefly touched upon, what you do, and you talked a lot about, working within the field of the environment and, the idea of sustainability. But we wanted to ask, why are you passionate about environmental sustainability?
Great question, Jeffrey. So it all started in India. I grew up in the city of Mumbai, a mega city, densely populated, more than 20 million people. And I grew up there for 10 years of my life. So I spent about fourth grade to 12th grade, nearly 10 years in that city. And over that time, I experienced personally the health effects and impacts of air pollution, water pollution, plastic pollution everywhere. And Mumbai is a very dense concrete jungle. Very few green areas exist within the city. So I always thought to myself growing up, is there a way we can live more sustainably? Is there a way we can live where we're not harming ourselves and not harming our natural environment? And my passion arose out of the impacts I faced due to excessive air pollution while traveling every day. Where the place I lived, just beside it was a river called Methi River. And 25 to 30 years ago, this was a clear river with flowing water. And now, and the time I grew up, it has turned into a complete sewage dump with plastic waste. So you see the site full of pollution, and you walk by it and you even smell methane. So this extremely polluted river, air pollution, plastic pollution everywhere in the city, the lack of greenery, all of that made me passionate about how can we solve this issue. And that led me to pursue a career in earth science. I started college in the US. I came here in 2015 to the United States and started a degree program in earth and environmental science. And now, after graduation, I'm still working in the field and plan to continue doing so. So that's why I'm passionate about sustainability and environmental issues.
Wow, thank you. And it's great to have another fellow environmental scientist on the call. But no, it's really great to see how your whole journey has been shaped by even, the first-hand effects of environmental issues. Like air pollution is definitely a big one in the world, in many countries. And, even as environmental scientists, I know in my undergraduate, we did a lot about learning about these health impacts. And it will surprise you about how bad air pollution can be. And, I think, like you said, once you, learn about this, it's about knowing what, this is the issue, but what can I do to help address this? How can I ensure that whether it's, the city that you live in or where you're from, how can I ensure that on an environmental basis, that how can I ensure that my city gets better? How can I ensure that it becomes more sustainable? And that's great to hear that, your journey has been shaped by that. And we look forward to what you do in the future. And that nicely leads on to our next question that we'll be asking you. So you've spoken a bit in your intro that you do some educational videos talking about different environmental topics, and some of our listeners may have seen that we posted a couple of weeks ago, a couple of months ago even, that you did a video which was really important about this idea of turning climate anxiety into climate action. And I think it's really key that our listeners, will include the link to that as well. So please check it out. It's really informative, really, really impactful as well. But essentially, we want to know, how does, educating individuals on environmental issues help them to tackle it?
That's a great question. So the way I approach it, and I've seen some great educators approach it, is by firstly introducing the problem, because the first step to knowing what to do is acknowledging there is a problem and understanding what is causing it, why it's happening, and what it means for human society. So the first step is to really, really address the problem and explain well the reasons for it. If we don't know, we need more research into that. Second thing is, now we know that there are lots of issues, like I mentioned, air pollution, water pollution. Of course, climate change is the big umbrella symptom of nature disconnected society we have. And all of these issues are very deeply interconnected. So we have a decent knowledge about these issues. Now, I think is a ripe time for solutions to be implemented in society by people from all levels. And there is a gap in the education regarding solutions. We know what the issues are. The news keeps repeating the issues, how bad things are, the predictions of a dire future. But there's a lack of positive visions around the future. If we ask 60% of the people, young people aged 16 to 25 years old, they're extremely worried about the future. They feel anxious, guilty, angry, fearful about the future. And that is a lack of optimism, maybe rightfully so, but we need that, because if we don't act and if we don't work towards solutions, what's the point of understanding and knowing the issues if we can't solve them? So I think education plays a role by not only educating about the problem, which many universities, news, research, scientific articles do, but also act on solutions, because then people can know specific methods to implement solutions, no matter who they are, no matter where they are, and no matter which position they occupy. And I can talk more about that in the coming minutes as well.
Thank you for that. And I think it's key to mention, like you said, that only by individuals understanding issues or how they, impact these issues, will they understand that, yeah, actually, I should be taking steps to tackle it. We've previously spoken as a team that, about the UN SDGs, or UN Sustainable Development Goals. And obviously, like you said, climate change has been a big forefront on everyone's mind, but goal 13 is specifically climate action. It talks about the devastating effects of climate change, but it also encourages, improving, one of the targets linked to it, target 13.3, is about improving education, awareness raising, and human and institutional capacity on climate change mitigation, adaptation. And, it's only by people learning, whether it's, through the videos that you watch, whether it's through studying it as a undergraduate degree or as a master's, that people will actually think, hey, I actually do have an impact on the world around me, and I can take steps to address it. And, previously, linking in, like I said, this nicely links into the episode we did with Michelle that was talking about climate anxiety. And, we talked about there that, individuals, I think, like you said, especially young people, have a tendency to feel like they can't actually implement or make changes in the world around them. They feel like, I'm not in positions of power. I don't have the status or the fame that can help me to, lobby stuff or make changes on a level. Mm-hmm. But it's actually learning that you can do that. There's things that you can do, even just within your local life. Yes. we joked on that episode that, the different things we were doing, whether it was, encouraging our family to use reusable bags when they go shopping, whether that's encouraging people to just, if you're going somewhere that's a walking distance, go for a walk. I know in the UK, especially in London, they've been introducing, the whole idea of these electric scooters. I know in my borough, luckily, I haven't tested it yet. So fingers crossed, I won't fall over the first go that I do. But they've introduced electric scooters to encourage people to go around the borough. So I think, like you said, it's just understanding that, we can learn these tips, these ideas about like how, as individuals, we can make these changes, because once we learn how to, we then actually get interested in being a part of the change and wanting to change it. But yeah, I think that's an amazing answer. And we're now going to go on to oh no, you're very welcome. And we're now going to go on to our next question. So before we officially, read out what the next question is, as always, you, our listeners and our watchers will know that we like to have a new segment called Mic Check, where we put our interesting facts and figures relating to the different topics that we're talking about. Now today, the fact, I should say, that we'll be talking about is given to us by the United Nations World Tourism Organization, or UNWTO, as they might be known as. And essentially, the reason why we're talking about them is because they did this really interesting article on climate action, and it was talking about, looking at how the future will look. They said that taking into account COVID, obviously people weren't able to travel a lot at the beginning, especially in 2020. This led to a global reduction in greenhouse gas emissions in 2020 by 7%, which is quite good. But obviously, looking to the future, it was forecasted in 2019 that by 2030, the emissions from tourism were forecasted to increase by 25% from 2016 levels. And they've highlighted that there is a need to address this, to ensure that this isn't actually what happens and we actually can make significant changes. And they have, they've got a video on their website that talks about what they're committing to do. They talk about, what, as an organization, that the UN is encouraging other countries to do. But essentially, as you can see, this is the time for change and action, which nicely leads on to our next question. But I won't be asking. I'll be handing over to the wonderful Michelle to ask the question. So Michelle, over to you.
Hi, yes. So our question to you, Ankur, is what can individuals do to turn climate anxiety into climate action?
So that's a big question with a big answer that I'll try to concisely explain. But so first of all, I think the first step when an individual is facing climate anxiety is to acknowledge that that's an issue and feel it completely, understand the reasons for that. And there could be different reasons as to someone could be fearful more, someone could be feeling more guilty instead. And there's a mixed bag of emotions that comes along with climate anxiety. The first step is to acknowledge that it exists. Then I would say not doing anything about it would be the worst way to face it. So instead, I always tell people action is the antidote to despair. And I mean, I also faced climate anxiety as a college student outside of graduation. And even during my earlier career, my first job, I was facing climate anxiety because I felt like I wasn't contributing to a problem that faces my generation. And so that's how I was facing it. But the way I personally got out of it is through action. And I can divide these actions into 4 levels. And that's given by Will Grant of the Pachmama Alliance. All credit to him for explaining that. But the 4 levels of action are, you can do actions on individual level, on a family/community level, on a local level, which includes cities and institutions, which and 4th is on a policy/lobbying level. So the first level is individual, where you learn about small-scale climate actions that you yourself can take, whether it's in your house, whether it's in your college, work, whatever. And that just involves things like reducing your meat consumption, making an increase plant-based diet, reducing flights, which may be unnecessary, depends, but reducing flights, driving less. So things like that, which could have some sort of positive impact from your individual choices. That's level 1. And I think it's good to start there and understand what you can do, but it's not enough and it's not nearly enough given the scale of the problem that we face. So level 2 is talking to your friends, talking to your family about the actions that you've learned from level 1, and sort of spreading them around, educating others, and doing it in a group maybe. So maybe you live with your family, maybe you live with roommates. Then can you do something together in that group to mitigate climate change? And that's what level 2 looks like. It can lead to a butterfly effect where friends could tell other friends, could tell other friends. So you have this sort of network effect. And there are some resources for that as well, like Project Drawdown's Eco Challenge. So that's mostly focused on level 1 and level 2 actions. Also somewhat level 4, but I'll get to that, but mainly focused on family and friends and individual actions. And it's a great resource to educate yourself on what actions can you take, and it allows you to make yourself accountable to take that action, and then gives you points. And you're competing with people all over the world signed up to Drawdown Eco Challenge, and then you have a leadership board which you climb based on the actions you take. So I think that's a really good resource I've used, and I learned a lot doing that. Level 3 actions, I think, are really critical. This threshold is on a local level where climate action can be introduced into organizations. So it could be organizations like universities, your city, your workplace. And the idea with level 3 is that you introduce climate solutions in a place where you are known as an individual, like they know your name, they know you personally. And even if they don't, you can at least get yourself known, and then you create change within that institution. And what could happen, what the hope is that the solutions that you introduce are then copied by other institutions in the same category. For instance, if you introduce a solar array or a food garden in a school, then the project can be so successful that other schools want to do the same thing. And then you're driving an exponential curve in the adoption of solutions because of your local action. Same thing for cities. If you have a city agree to an emissions reductions goal with specific actions, like introducing legislation for ease of use of electric vehicles, or increasing solar roofing on residential and industrial buildings, these kinds of actions can have a network effect, because if other cities follow the same thing, boom, you have this exponential climate action going on. So level 3 is massive. I think if you reach level 3, you're doing amazing. Level 4 is policy/lobbying, and these actions involve signing petitions, talking to your senators and congresspeople. And again, obviously this is very important, but most of this relies on government action. And by now we know that most governments do not care about this issue as much as we should. So I think level 3 is way more organic. It's from the ground up / middle level, where it's not from the base individual actions, but it's not top down either. So it's somewhere in the middle, and it has this organic effect where people are not mandated to do certain things. Rather, they want to do it because the systemic change is way better than the alternative that we were doing. So I think these 4 levels of action are a prescription to climate anxiety and an antidote to climate anxiety. And the last thing I would say is just be more educated. The 2 resources that I always try to recommend is our Project Drawdown, focused on these awesome solutions, climate solutions ranked by their emissions reduction, and Project Regeneration, which has specific action recommendation and educational resources for each climate solution. So highly recommend Project Drawdown and Project Regeneration for getting started and learning about what you can do on all of these 4 levels.
Honestly, no, I completely agree. I think that's, first of all, I also had to do loads of research on like that when I was doing my thing. And I found it really interesting because I found this thing. Oh, I wish I had my notebook now. I had like a whole bunch of notes. But basically, more specifically, because I looked a lot into anxiety, obviously, due to the whole climate anxiety thing. And I found that actually, this is going to sound kind of funny, but say this is like a graph. Basically, say anxiety was down here and action was down here. Maybe I'm getting it wrong. No, okay, so anxiety and stress is on the bottom, and like excitement is on the top. And the whole idea is that being like stressed about something and like nervous is kind of like a way of, oh, I'm getting this so wrong, but it's like described of a way of feeling aroused in the same way that excitement is. So it means that like it's such like a malleable emotion, because if you just look at it in a positive way, it can like positively guide you to do something. So like that energy can be so swiftly like changed into positive like excitement and action towards something that will help you, instead of feeling obviously horrible and anxious. And all it takes is just like that mental change and being like, because it's the same thing that athletes do, you know, whenever you see an athlete like about to be, you know, in the Olympics or something, they ask them like, are you nervous? And they're like, no, I'm excited. And it's all a mental thing. And I know it's such a little thing, but like being able to turn that, obviously the anxiety, into excitement to take action, and like having those, all those steps that you mentioned, because as much as, even if you just start small, like everyone needs to start somewhere. And I feel like it's just so like, oh, important and exciting.
Absolutely.
No,
absolutely agree. And if I can add a little more to that, because you brought up an awesome point. No, that's a great point. So I would also say, if you feel climate anxiety, if someone feels it, that could be a good thing, because then, like you said, that emotion can be transformed into something positive. It's a seed for action. So climate anxiety is a seed for climate action. So if you're not feeling climate anxiety, maybe you won't be as motivated for conducting climate action. So I think it's a great thing. Climate anxiety is a start, and then
it's a tool.
That seed. It's a tool. Exactly. Exactly.
Like, I think exactly the same way. I think it's like, because also there's so many ways of sorry, not to keep going, but for example, there's so many people that begin, like you said, feeling climate anxiety, and they're like, they turn to this thing and they're like, oh, well, what's the point? We're going to die anyway. And like, that's such a detrimental way of thinking, because not only is it not going to help you, but it's more likely going to make you act less environmentally, because of the fact that you're like, oh, we're going to die anyway. And it's like, that's not going to make anyone feel good. Do you know what I mean? Like, you have to use the tools and the emotions you have in the best way possible. And obviously it's hard. Like, I'm not saying it's easy. It's definitely like a difficult journey, but in the end, it makes you feel so much better. And especially because environmental anxiety is such like an everyday, like, it's not, you can't get rid of it. You know what I mean? It doesn't disappear, but you can use it to your benefit so that it helps you instead of harms you.
For sure. And allows you to help others and help society as well. I totally agree with that. And I also like that your work with climate anxiety, Michelle, demonstrated that nature connection significantly decreases climate anxiety. One issue we have as a society, especially increasingly tech-based society, is that we're constantly disengaged from nature. We're spending most of our lives on the screen. In fact, I was reading yesterday, and I'm a part of this. I'm not going to say I'm any different, but yesterday I was reading that an average American, when average adult of 60 years of age, has spent more than 40 years staring at the screen. Okay, take that in. 2/3 of the life, phone, computer, TV, all of that counts as screen. So 40 years in the age of 60 years, that's ridiculous.
That's like, that's all your life.
Seriously. I mean, so what we really desperately need is education, especially starting from a young age, connecting kids and even young adults to nature. And one way to do that is just starting hiking, camping, spending, even if it's not a hike, just spending a few minutes every day outside and learning about the plants and trees that surround you. And there's a Japanese art. It's called Shirin Yoku. Have you heard of that? Forest bathing. So there's doctors in Japan. Some prescribe this method to reduce blood pressure and reduce chronic effects of diabetes. Basically saying that if you spend 15 to 20 minutes just sitting under a tree, meditating there, feeling the tree being present, it has really positive effects to reduce stress and anxiety and blood pressure. So there are physical health effects, health impacts, which benefit from nature connection, as well as reduction in anxiety. So yeah.
Honestly, it's like, it's so important. And like when I was doing my research, I found like, because all it is creating a habit and creating a sense of connection. It's creating that sense of oneness with the world and remembering that, like, you know, because I feel like, especially becoming so, again, such a digital age, we all think, oh, you know, there's nature and there's us. And it's just like, no, that's such an incorrect way of thinking. It's like, we need to remember and we need to create that habit. It's like, we are one, we are Earth. You know what I mean? Like, we might be different people, sure, but we are all one. And it's just creating that sense and remembering. And especially with children, like, it's just creating a habit and a connection. Because as a child, like, what is that? A plant? It's green, whatever. Like, you have to spend time just in nature to be able to appreciate it. Because otherwise, like, it's like everything. You don't appreciate things unless you've created some sort of like feeling of needing to and wanting to be there. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. We're not separate from nature. We're all, we depend on nature and we depend on other species, and this is an interconnected web of life. So
exactly. And the more we learn that, the more we understand. And also, it's also proven, sorry, bringing my research back in.
No, please.
It's also proven that if you are more connected with nature, you also have reduced climate anxiety, because, like, obviously the world is kind of, you know, not great at the moment with the climate, but being connected to nature makes you feel less anxious about it, which allows you to actually do more work on becoming green, because you have the sense of, like, you know that everything's going to be okay as long as you do everything you have to do. I guess that's like a really simple way of putting it, but yeah, I just think it's such an important thing to, like, remember. But yes, now
definitely.
Swiftly moving on to our next and final question. The final question is, how are you sustainable in your own life, and what would you suggest?
Great question. Many aspects to this. Some I try to be as sustainable as possible. Some I'm still working on it. But I can say that growing up in India and with my family, I grew up vegetarian. So I pretty much been on a plant-based diet my whole life. So, I mean, whatever reductions that has, I haven't really calculated it, but I have not eaten much meat. I mean, I've only had a couple of times accidentally, and one time on a farm that I knew the person who was raising the chickens. So that's the only time. But yeah, so plant-based diet. I try not to buy any new things, especially clothes, books, whatever, like used or electronic copy. That's my mantra regarding consumption. And that helps me save money, but also like, more importantly, not clutter my house, not have things which I really don't need. And there's a really great quote by George Carlin. Problem in society is that people are buying things they don't need with money they don't have to impress people they don't like. And I mean, consumerism is what drives our current economy. And it's based off of profits. And it's leading to this death spiral, not just of ecosystems, but also society in general. Our health is worsening. The average lifespan of Americans is decreasing. After a great increase, now it's going down. So we're consuming our way to death, essentially. And how do we reverse the course? And I think the big part of climate action is also not consuming as much, being educated and being mindful. Do you really need it? And I ask myself 3 times, do I really need this? Do I really need this? If I really need it, I might buy it, or maybe borrow it, or buy a used one.
Yeah.
So that's a second sustainable action. Third is, reducing water consumption wherever I can individually, on an individual basis, talking to people and making these YouTube videos on climate education, environmental education, whatever impact that has. It's out in the world. People can watch it. And
education is an important part as well.
Right.
So much more than I think people realize as well, just awareness as well.
Yeah, awareness, right. And then, of course, small actions like recycling, again, that's debated. Some of it is honestly a scam in the US, because a lot of the waste is sent overseas. We don't even know where, and it's probably burned. So that's a big issue. And then I work with a nonprofit on a volunteer basis called Mycelium. I'm like, the title is director of operations, but essentially we're volunteers, and I'm a core part of that group. And our mission is to accelerate the circular economy. So we are doing projects in the themes of waste reduction, food sustainability, and then we have concepts for self-sufficient housing. So far, the main projects we're doing right now is implementing food gardens in schools. So we want to have sustainable food growing in schools and teach kids how to grow it, but also we're including something called a farm bot. That's an open source robot that maintains a raised bed without any chemicals. No, like it's completely sustainable. And it's combining STEM education, robotics, with growing food sustainably. And that's part of what we're bringing to schools. And you can call that third level 3 action or sustainable action. So yeah, I just want to create these seeds of institutional change, and I'm trying my best to do it. And another effort that I'm involved in, and I hope people try to emulate it wherever they are, is implementing an ordinance in the city for creating a sustainability commission. And that commission would essentially be responsible for overseeing any new development and making sure it minimizes, or at least reverses in some cases, environmental damage. So this would be a commission overseeing energy usage, development, conservation of the environment and land. And it doesn't exist in our city. There's no such thing. So we're trying to bring that.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, like working with a group of like-minded people, with a community. It's really powerful because then you feel a sense of purpose. It's motivating, and
you're not
definitely,
alone.
And you're not alone, right? Exactly. You're not alone.
And that makes such a difference when dealing with a problem as big and as global as climate change.
Yeah. You don't have to be alone. Exactly. Yeah. And I think many companies have just nailed down on, you should recycle, you should do this, and it's individualistic action. And the problem is,
on the shoulder, like,
it's a burden on the consumer and an individual, and that's a very effective yet pathetically wrong form of communication, because this is a global problem. It needs global solutions, but those will come from communities and cities. And I think communities, cities, and groups of people are really going to be bringing the change. And I think the last point I want to focus on is career. No matter which field you're in, you can help mitigate and adapt to climate change, no matter what you're doing, whether it's finance, medical industry, no matter what you're in, it's related to climate change because it's such a big problem. And for me personally, I switched my job from a research associate to a geospatial data scientist, but basically it's for a company that's trying to measure carbon emissions and in cities and try to offset it or reduce it by certain strategies. And the company also focuses on companies which are trying to meet their sustainability goals, but they don't know how to. And we're bringing the science and data to actually do that. So
cool.
Just switching your career, because now there's an exponential increase in climate jobs. There are many resources.
Everyone's like, I need it.
Yeah.
And like, you know what? Even though, sorry, not to cut you off, but even though, I feel like even though a lot of people are doing it, not even entirely because they want to, but because it's like the fashion, the new trend, the new necessity.
New trend.
Even though it's only that, it actually can cause so much like benefit. Like you just have to hop on the wheel and just hope it takes you all the way. Because even if it's a trend, like it's a trend that we're rolling on and we're going to try and keep forever because it's just so valuable.
Yeah. Perfectly said. I mean, I think I see it as a rising tide. Currently, it's just very like the beginning of an exponential curve. We have several thousands people currently, but the hope is in 5 years, it'll be millions. And people all over the world from any industry. I'm meeting people like from various marketing, finance, all these different backgrounds, jumping into the climate sector because we need them. And I think it's great to see and be witness to that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I love that. I'm so here for this.
and yeah, I think
like everything.
no, it's so true. And I think I was going to say, I like that when you said like working with other industries, because I don't know if I've mentioned it on the podcast before, but in one of our lectures, we were looking at like different organizations doing for stuff related to climate change. And one group talks about Netflix. And here's me thinking, how can like an organization which literally gets its money through using energy. How are they going to address sustainability? And one of the things that was really interesting was Netflix as a company were talking about how they essentially hire environmental consultants whose job is that before they were basically saying when they would go to a set, sometimes if the set's in a, I don't know, like in a field or in a forest, they might have to cut stuff down, or they might not necessarily be very protective or very cautious or careful when they go in there. They might bring non-native species, or they might just cut down loads of stuff to make the whole area like open. But they're now hiring these like environmental consultants whose job is essentially that, hey, if Netflix are doing a new TV show, a new film, and they want to film a scene here, how can they ensure that they're building in a very sustainable way? How can the sets be built in a sustainable way? Even gaming industry, that was another one that surprised me. They themselves, whether it's, I guess showing the beauty of the world in the games themselves, or if it's actually like stuff that they're doing. So I know that at the time of recording, a game that's come out recently is a game called Horizon Forbidden West. And it's a good game. If anyone's looking to, if they've got a PS5, if you're one of the rare people who've got a PS5, I would definitely recommend checking it out. But yeah, the great thing about that is one of the things that they did is they have this achievement about like, you've traveled like around the whole map of the game. And for everyone that completes it, they've committed to like planting at least one tree to encourage people to be like, hey, we just want you to like see the beauty in the game, see the wonders of the game, but also, like once you completed it, it's not just going to be something that, doesn't have an impact on the world. Actually, we're going to plant trees because you've done this. So yeah, I think like you said, that it is becoming more, I guess there's more variety of jobs than people just saying, if you want to be an environmental scientist, or if you do anything with sustainability, you can only work as like a scientist or a consultant. No, it's actually like other industries are saying, hey, we need to think about how can we as individuals actually be impactful on the world around us. And I think that's really good. And I think some of the steps that you've mentioned, will be great for individuals to let us know, even if they might be doing some stuff. So if you are, please do feel free to put it in the comments. And yeah, that's really great. And that nicely leads on to our new segment, which is passing the mic. So at this point, I can't believe I'm saying it's the last one for season 3, but we're officially passing the mic over to Ankur. So Ankur, I'm passing the mic to you. Please let us know the question that you've prepared for us today.
Sure. Thank you, Jeffrey. So the question I prepared and thought about is, how do you see the role of Pick Up the Mic, your podcast, in the world of content creation? What is your hope, and how do you hope to inspire people listening to these conversations?
So this is very, very deep question. When I saw it, I was just like, "Oh, I need to make sure I give a good answer." So how do I see it in the world of content creation? I think first off, I see it as being a place where new content creators can feel free to come, speak about something that they're passionate about, whether it's a topic or whether it's as an individual, what they do, to just come and talk about, a topic that they're passionate about, or talk about something that, we're all passionate about. So like I said, one of the things that we're starting to do is, some more fun episodes on different topics like Marvel or comics in general and things like that. And, we just want individuals who essentially are really happy about that. That's one of the things that I've loved about doing the podcast, is hearing all the, these great guest speakers, including yourself, tell stories, even like people in the team, like, like Michelle was saying stuff about her research that I didn't know about. I was listening and just like, wow, man, no, I never knew this. This is amazing. And that, other colleagues like Samuel and Anushka and Yashka, they've all said impactful things that I didn't know a lot about. So I definitely see it being a space for new content creators to feel like they've got a platform to speak. But also, I guess in the world of content creation, I see it as being somewhere that can, not necessarily like our advice is, as good as professionals, but like giving a space to be like, hey, if you're a university student or you're a recent graduate, like these are some things that you could do to help, these are some resources if you're looking for jobs, or these are some resources if you're looking to improve yourself. Like, I think that's one of the things that we saw as a team, but also on an individual level, that during the pandemic, a lot of people kind of felt I guess lost is the best word, because, you know, whether it was the career that they wanted to do was basically put on hold because of the pandemic, or whether it was because, you know, they graduated and they couldn't get the job that they were looking for. That was one of the things that when, you know, before we started, we were just like, hey, you know, actually a lot of students are unsure about like what their future is going to be in this, I guess, new world. And we were all just like, you know, it would be great if we can have somewhere that students can listen whenever they want, you know, and they can learn new things about themselves. They could maybe see someone that they could get in contact with, to, you know, ask them more questions about a, you know, particular career that they're interested in, or even just be like, hey, this is some great advice for me to know, you know, whether it's during my university experience or after my university experience. So I'd say in terms of content creation, that's it. My hope would be to make this like a full-time thing.
Nice.
Yeah, I'd love to pick up the mic my full-time job. I promise everyone, I would be a chill boss. I would be chill. I wouldn't be looking to build rockets, go into space, but I would be a chill boss all the same. But yeah, I definitely would love to make it a full-time thing. It's just, like I said, it's really fun to have these conversations, and it can be a bit annoying, I guess, at the moment. Like, I'm just doing my master's, but obviously, you know, when I have a full-time job, that's going to impact how I would be able to record episodes. So I would love to make content creation specifically under Pick Up the Mic like a full-time job and work with individuals and companies. But yeah, there's loads of people out there that do amazing work. So it'd be great to help them to highlight that. And I think especially as like when both like with Pick Up the Mic and other stuff that I've started with that does content creation, I think one of the things that I saw was that, especially as like someone new, like this isn't me like sending shots. Like I do understand that some, you know, people that are like big audience, like the big celebrities out here might not necessarily be able to respond to like everyone or work with everyone. But I guess one of the things that I saw was that sometimes it did kind of feel like, as a new content creator, you know, if you had like an amazing idea for an episode with like a particular like famous person, you'd be like, wow, you know, if I could get this person on, I could talk about this, and it would just be like so good. Like you're not even doing it because, you know, you want to be famous or you want to like promote your podcast on a large audience, but you just know that like having that guest speaker, you could just make something really great that would be impactful. So I think that would be my hope as well, that whether it's people who would work for Pick Up the Mic, whether it was people that, you know, would just be on it, they would feel like, yeah, I as a new content creator would have the space or the audience to work with, you know, someone who's like big in the field, or someone, you know, who's new, who I could be like, oh, hey, like, I don't necessarily, you know, want to, you know, like be you or to necessarily like replace you on the stage, but you talk a lot about sustainability, and I would love to, you know more. I have my own small sustainability page, and I just want to know more about the content creation things and the do's and don'ts. So that would be my answer. I'd love Pick Up the Mic to be a full-time job. I'd love for it to be something that can inspire individuals to content create themselves and inspire new content creators to feel like, hey, you know, you can still do it from whenever you want to. But I think, Michelle, I think you wanted to say something as well.
Yeah, I only want to say something small because, to be fair, I only joined the team like less than a year ago. But like I've loved doing it. Like again, we don't do it even amazingly often, but even when we do, like I think it's just so interesting to be able to speak to people and like ask them questions about what they do. And again, like everyone speaks so passionately. But on top of that, I feel like, because we've joined with like your other environmental ones, so now we've got like, you know, some fun things, but then also some important topics. And I think it also just, like, for all the listeners, it helps just raise awareness of things that, like, you know, it's just good to know, because then they'll maybe talk about it and then maybe they'll mention it to a friend. And again, like awareness and education, I think, are such a big thing, but it also shows like if anyone listening is like feeling similar to whatever someone's talking about, like I think it just helps people feel less alone. And especially, as you said, like obviously with people, you know, going into the pandemic and then everyone had to go home and they couldn't do the jobs they wanted and all this stuff. Like, I think even if people don't know you, knowing that there's someone out there who feels similarly to you about a specific topic or has knowledge about something that you want to have more knowledge about, like it's just such a nice space to be able to share that, like, comfortably and happily and be like, yeah, this is what I know. Let me know if you know more. Like, it's just, I think it's just really sweet. And I'm just so happy to be a part of it. Like, it's so great.
And it's great to have, like I said, it's been great to work with the amazing team I've got. It's been great to have amazing speakers like yourself, Ankur. It's just a fun journey. And yeah, I think the best way to end it on is at this point of recording, it's literally a week before it comes up to like our year anniversary of doing the podcast.
Nice.
And It's just been like a crazy year so far, and I'm just like, whatever happens in the next year, I'm looking forward to it. It's been fun. I've really enjoyed it. And yeah, just looking forward to what comes next. So yeah, I guess that's the best way that I can end that. But yeah, no, thank you, Ankur, for that wonderful question. Because yeah, like I said, definitely got me thinking. And yeah, we're now going to thank you very much. And we're now going to move on to our everyone's favorite segment, MC of the Month. So as some of you can obviously guess, our MC of the Month, we sort of talked about them, not specifically them as an organization, but we spoke about, obviously the UN. We've spoken about the SDGs before in a previous episode, when we were talking about sustainable development and what that was. But essentially, our MC of the Month for today is the UN's or the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, or UNFCCC. Now, the reason why we picked them is because, as you can guess by the title, they essentially do their main aim is essentially to keep average global temperatures as close to possible to 1.5, which is the green zone, is where we're hoping to be as a world and collectively, and to ensure that essentially things that have been agreed in the Paris Agreement, things that have been agreed as the Sustainable Development Goals will be met. 8 years until we get to that point of whether we have met some of these goals. It'll be interesting to see the work done in the next 8 years. But essentially, they monitor this. And the reason why I picked them is in 2018, they did this really interesting article that was looking at the idea of, it's titled 5 Ways You Can Take Climate Action. Now, the reason why it's really great is because it addresses it from different organizational levels. So I guess, like Ankur was saying about, looking at the individual level all the way up to like the international governmental level, it talks about different actions you can take for different groups. So it was saying, like, for example, I guess if you're on a community level, find ways for your your community, or if you're your small organization, how you can be sustainable, whether that's joining in green investments. There's different pledges, like the Green Bond Pledge, that you can take part in, investing in green infrastructure, whether this is implementing, as an organization, like on a bigger scale or a governmental scale, using climate-friendly policies regarding agriculture, land use, and conservation efforts. Whether you're as a tech company looking at ways to do, when it comes to innovation around net zero buildings, when it comes to emissions, fossil fuel free streets, reducing waste. There's different things that it goes into, and we just thought this is a really good way to help promote, essentially sustainable living. So like I said, it does deal into like all the different levels, and we'll include the link as well. So if you do want to check it out, you're more than welcome to. But yeah, essentially, they're our MC of the Month. And on that note, we have come officially not only to the end season of this episode, but we've also come to the end of season 3. And it's been a great journey. I want to say a huge thanks to Ankur for being our final guest for season 3. It's been a pleasure to learn about you and all the things that you do. I guess before we go, we just want to know, if our listeners, really wanted to know more about you, where should they go? I know you mentioned your YouTube channel already, and obviously that's linked on our MC of the Month, our speaker page for you. But essentially, if our listeners are thinking, hey, I want to get in contact with Ankur, what's the best way for them to do that?
I think YouTube is fine. Also, my LinkedIn and email, I usually respond pretty fast on LinkedIn or email. And so LinkedIn, you can search Ankur Shah, my name, and there are many Ankur Shahs in India. We have 1.1 billion people, so lots of Ankur Shahs exist. But probably I'll give you the link, and you can send that or paste that wherever. And my email is ankur@mycelium.ngo. So yeah, you can email me or add me on LinkedIn, and I keep producing content on YouTube. So subscribe if you can.
No, perfect. No. We definitely get a lot, love doing our own subscribe messages as well.
Thank you.
It's great to see like I said, the video that Ankur did will be in the description below. So please do check that out. It's very important to what we discussed today in this episode. As always, if you liked the episode, again, like Ankur said, like, comment, and subscribe is always great. You know, if you hit that bell notification, you won't miss the next episode. And again, feel free to sign up to our Patreon page if you're not listening, so you can see some of our new content. You know, we'll be doing further discussions with some of our guests, including Ankur, and yeah, just subscribe to that. And on that notice, you know, thanks everyone for the official end of season 3. It's been a great journey, like I said, and who knows, season 4 might be around the corner. So thank you, everyone. Speak to you soon.
Thank you, everyone.
And
thank
take
you
care.
so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.